It's the Benz Punani womanist. Baby boys, baby girls, you need to hear this. Sit down, receive this realness. Make sure your cup's ready for the tea. We are go sip it, yo. Hot time scrolling for your long shorts. You might learn something you never know. Collect you fine, and she's one of a kind. Don't say you're mine, say you're mine.
Wow. Look at me with superstars. I can't believe this. I'm excited. It's wonderful to be speaking with the three of you, Theresa, Bukky and Kosar. It's lovely to be speaking with you all. Like, you've done a phenomenal job with Rocks. I watched it and I just cried. I cried watching it because I didn't feel like I had any kind of similar things when I was growing up. There wasn't a film like that when I was growing up. So kudos to you, Theresa, for coming up with the premise for this. And Bukky and Kosar, your delivery, the way that you brought it to life was incredible. Like, just to watch that friendship grow was incredible. The process is really interesting to me, though, because everything was pretty much built around the both of you. Is that right, Theresa? Like, this process came during the workshopping process.
Yeah, so the story arc was there, but there were things like, these girls are so magic and electric, not just these two, but the other 5 as well. So we had probably been together. I'd been working on this story as a film separately. So when I brought it to these guys, probably around a year after I'd met them, and it was testament really to the sisterhood that we had grown from the process, that I felt like this thing that I was writing and working on as a love letter to my sister, it felt like the safest and richest soil was with these new sisters that I had found. And then what had happened, because we had known them for probably a year before we actually started working on the script, was that we had been infected with their magic. So there was, their quirkiness, their joy, these two are so mischievous, like the they kept. They got kicked out of the workshop day one of when they met each other. And at this point, we had been working with Bukky for a good few months, and she was so studious and so hardworking before she met Kosar. And when I first met Kosar, I was like, because Sarah loved Kosar, and actually Sarah met Kosar before we did, and I knew from the very beginning Bukky was my Rocks, and was trying to find a best friend that could match her energy. And I was just like, and then I saw Kosar, and she was tinier than she is now. She was so tiny, and I was like, she's not gonna sign up for Bukky. She's not gonna be able to influence Bukky. Bukky's like 5 minutes. So get out so we were lucky that we were witness to their magic, and it just kept informing the script. And we also actually did writing workshops with them, so we sat down with the whole story, and they had post-it notes, they did characters work, and we were live writing on set as well. So things that weren't quite working, or if in their improvisation or if in their rehearsal they would come up with a better line, then when I'll take that and write it in. So it was just such a collaboration, such a generosity on their part, such a trust on our part as well. And they would come to us at the end of almost every day and just be like, thank you so much for trusting us with this. And we'd be like, thank you so much for trusting us with this. And it was like a complete, everyone just poured so much of themselves. So even though it started as this thing for my sister, I'm really proud that it grew into this a much bigger and much more loving and to so many more women than I had ever imagined, because we included so many more women than I thought was possible in telling the story. And not, from costume to, design and makeup and hair, everybody poured, every single person, and it's not an exaggeration to say everybody poured into the story and into the feel and the love and the magic of this film.
Yeah, no, and it comes across like there is so much love in it. There is so much craft that has gone into it that it's undeniably magnificent. Like, it's so blooming incredible. I love it so much. And what got me was, at some points you almost feel like it's a documentary. So when you mention like writing in the process of rehearsing and things like that, it comes across because it feels so natural. And that's a testament to you, Bukky and Kosar, for your acting. Because I was like, because you watch those Channel 4 documentaries and you watch it and you're just like, oh, this is a documentary, but this is an actual film. But you're so amazing at what you do. How did that process come about for you both? Well, we can start with you, Bukky. How did it come about as Rocks, as the protagonist in this film? being in a position that I recognized for myself growing up, having to look after my my little brothers and things, and feeling like it was a lot for me to handle. How did you tap into that to bring that to the fore and make it feel so natural?
I think initially when I was trying to approach the character, I struggled a bit because I thought acting was some out of body experience. I thought that yeah, with technique, yeah, I was gonna become rocks. But later on, I just realized that you have to find it within. So, like coming to terms with that, I can identify with rocks. That's what made the whole process much easier. I feel like a lot of Black women will be able to identify with rocks as well. So just putting myself in her shoes and really imagining this situation happening to me, because it could happen to me. The fact that it was a reality that could be so close to my reality made it easier for me to execute the role.
Yeah, and for you, Kosar, how did that come through for you? Because your role is so integral. Like, there is Toni Morrison has so many books, and Toni Morrison talks about you, having a friend, having a sister that picks up the pieces of you and hands it back to you, that she's put them back together for you. And I think that that's what you do, your character does for Rox. Like, you put her back together, you give her back the pieces of herself. Did you have friendships like that to draw on, like elements of your friendships to really put into that character?
Yeah, actually, yeah. I kind of just had to, if I'm being honest, I didn't really prepare myself for the role, because then I was only 13, so I never really knew acting, so I didn't think you'd have to prepare yourself for anything for this. But I'm not even going to give the credit to myself. It was more Bukky, because being around her is just that it happened like kind of naturally. Like when we were in the scene, it was kind of a situation where, imagine if this is real life, like if it was actually Bukky's scenario. I feel like that's how I kind of approached it and went on from there, if that makes sense.
Yes. So I think that that's interesting. So you put the characters to the side and you looked at the person who was doing the acting, you looked at Bukky and worked with that instead. And it is really, really powerful in that way. For you all, you know, as a Black women, and that's including yourself, Theresa, being a little bit older, what does sisterhood mean to you? Because that is, to me, at the core of this film. Sisterhood, that's what brings Rox through. That is what, you know, gets her through all of this. So what does sisterhood mean for you?
I think it means everything to me. I have 5 biological sisters, and then I have, you know, amazing group of friends that I consider my sisters, and I went to an all-girls school in Hackney. And, you know, I've always had women, you know, saving me and defining me and breaking me and putting me back together. And when I went to a college in South London, and I saw groups of girls who didn't get along, or who tore each other down, it was genuinely, I was like, I don't understand this. I don't understand. What do you mean you like the same boy she likes? That's your friend. Like, I've never understood why anything would matter, why women wouldn't be the most important thing to other women. Like, we are just the dopest thing that walks. Yeah, so I've always believed in the transformative power of female friendship and the saving power of sisterhood. And it really is probably at the center of everything that I write, because I'm just so grateful for it. And I'm constantly looking for ways to thank the women in my life and to lift them up and to acknowledge them and to celebrate them. And I think it makes its way into all the stories that I want to tell, because it is so integral to who I am. And I think my writing is an outpouring of my soul, and it is a huge part of my soul.
Yeah, no, and I feel that it comes across in how you've written this. It, you know, it really does come across that there is a love of girlhood, and there's a love of womanhood that comes through in a way that sometimes is often missing, because like you say, we look around us in society and it looks like other women are tearing other women down, and we know, you know, the kind of things that inform this in terms of patriarchy. So it was great to have something that was celebratory, even though there was this conflict and there was this dilemma at, you know, at the center of it, or as the catalyst for bringing the sisterhood to the fore. But for you, Bukky, how was it for you in terms of sisterhood and your relationship with that idea?
So I have one sister, but she lives in South Africa. I've never actually met her. So I have sisterhood from friendship. Like being the only girl in my household amongst like 3 brothers, I've always had that tightness with my girls. And sisterhood, friendship is so important to me. Like my sisters are the first people that I've ever been vulnerable with. They're the people that really and truly know Bukky Bakray. Feel like your family know a certain type of you, and your friends do, and my sisters, they know me. And I don't know what I would do without those friendships. So to see sisterhood, especially Black sisterhood, depicted so so I want to say rubbishly, like
I take that, yeah.
so, so rubbishly is just so weird to me. Like I remember Theresa said in a previous interview that when she saw all these girls in film and TV arguing about like just some silly things, and she was like, this is weird, like this isn't my reality, this is not what I knew from sisterhood, and I can really relate to that. Like I went to an all-girls school in East London as well, and I can honestly say that all-girls schools build personality, and I would say like 70% of my my school time was just me laughing because it was just so funny. And I feel like that's what should be shown on screen. Like if you want to tell stories about Black women, you might as well just tell the real thing, the real deal, instead of I feel like we've just been seeing stuff from a male gaze.
Ooh.
Like as Theresa has said, sisterhood and friendship is so important and it's so beautiful. And my mum always tells me that friendship is really important, and I never really understood that until I met my real friends and until I met the beautiful women that I met on this journey on set. Like seeing how they move, how they act amongst each other, and how the sisterhood is so strong, is rife, it's real. It's not what I thought it would be, and I'm excited for the long-term relationship that I'm gonna have, the sisterhood that I'm going to have forever in my life.
Yeah, no, I hear that. And Kosar, is that the same for you?
Yeah.
Because another interesting dynamic is the fact that is Shemaya in the film, she's Muslim? Right. And so looking at that, and Bukky, the Rox is not, right?
Yeah.
So, and I think that that's something that's interesting in our friendships as well, and our sisterhoods, that when it's projected back to us from the outside, we're told that, oh no, we don't have friendships that cross religions and things, and you know, all of these things, and ethnicities, that these things don't happen. But we're seeing that they have this relationship, and everything else almost falls to the background. Was the difference in religion something that was addressed in the process of rehearsing?
Not at all, no, because it's like London. You know how diverse London is, and going to school in London, especially, you come across all religions, but that's not important. You know, that doesn't stop me being friends with you because of who you believe in. So when we were in workshop processes, we didn't really talk about religion, or it wasn't really a main concern. But Theresa, I don't know if it was something new.
Yeah, I think Kosar said it perfectly. I think when religion came up, it was more in terms of like how people felt about their own religion and the world, but not necessarily how it informed their friendships. So Anastasia Dimitrov, who's one of the actors in the play, she describes herself as Polish Gypsy, and I think her faith is Catholic. So she spoke about it to enlighten us, and Kosar and Theresa would speak about what it is to wear hijab in London to enlighten us. And I think that's what friendship is. It's a curiosity about one another, and it's about sharing experiences. We share food and knowledge and culture, and I think that was and I think that's true to what friendships are in London. One of my best friends is Muslim and I'm Christian, and I'll pray and I will say in Jesus' name, and she will say Amin, and she will pray and then she'll say Inshallah, and I will say Amen, and we don't think, there's just no second thought about it really. So I asked the question, I was like, oh, actually I do say Jesus' name when I pray, and I'll be praying for her, and you know, but that is my faith, and there isn't a thing, there isn't a thought, there isn't a, we share, like I've been to the mosque with her and she's been to, you know, and I just think that's just the beauty of friendship in London. And I think that's the beauty of we're really lucky that we get to like double our culture, double our experiences through these friendships that bring differences to the table.
Yeah, I think that's what's just so rich about Rocks as a film, because it's truthful. It's truthful in the way that, you know, I brought up the religion aspect because I recognize that, just as you've described. I've got friends, really, really like tight friends that are my sisters, who are Muslim, hijabis. It's not something that you consider on the forefront unless someone's like taking, you know, the piss out of them. It's not something that you really consider, except for when you're stepping up to support them in, you know, solidarity. But otherwise, you accept and you celebrate and embrace each other and your cultures, and you love all of these things. I just think it makes you richer as a person. During Ramadan, you're aware when your friends are observing Ramadan, like, you know how to move and what to say and where to invite them to and things like that. There is a certain kind of worldliness that I think we have when we have all these different cultures around us in London. And I think it speaks to, you know, other places as well, other kind of metropolitan places, but we specifically, it is something that you celebrate so well in the film, and I truly love it. There is a conflict that happens between Sumaya and Rox. You know, there's that tension that comes up at a particular point. How have you found the process of playing these characters informing how you deal with conflicts in your day-to-day life, and how you would usually deal with falling out with a friend? How did that impact how you went about your role? You can start. You're looking, Kosar. You can start.
I won't lie to you, it was a bit difficult because if I fall out with a friend, I'm not really much of a shouting type of like direct person. I'm more of, I can just speak in a very calm tone and be like, okay, like, you know what I mean? Like, address it or try to sort it out. So when I was doing that scene, it was a bit like, I was in my head, like 50 thoughts at once. I was like, do I shout? Do I talk normal? How do I approach this? But at the same time, I'm laughing because it's Bukky. Like, throughout the whole film, it was like, because it was going in chronological order.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Just having fun, like jokes, and then boom, it was like a serious scene, and it was like, how did we approach that? Like, without laughing, without a shout, so it was difficult, but I mean, we got there. Yeah, so that was my challenges when we were doing that scene, kind of, yeah.
And Bukky, how was it for you?
That was like the hardest scene for me, because that's just, as Kosar said, that's not how I would react in that kind of situation. I always like to avoid confrontation and just not really speak. Like, a situation like that has only happened to me one time in my life, and it was a group of us, not just two people. Like, first of all, what Rox did was very outlandish and like disrespectful. I would never swear at my friends.
Yeah, same.
That's what was like mad at me. And I even slammed the picture frame on the
And I
TV.
Right.
told you to get out. How can I tell you to get out when you're in a situation like that? Who says that? Who says that? Oh.
No, honestly, like, but I do realize that for some people that's their reality. That's how some women deal with situations. So, like, it's not like I've never been angry before. I have been angry at my friends before, not to this degree, but I have. And I think after doing that situation, after acting that out with Kosar, it made me realize how I would never ever. I will always try and avoid dealing with a situation like that, because watching that back, like the stuff Rox was saying was so like she has every right to feel that way, but you don't need to say that. And Kosar, Samaya, sorry, is just trying to understand you, and everything she's trying to do is for you. But then again, I can really identify with that. Like, I feel like Rox was just feeling like Samaya was pitying her, and I know a lot of women. I know I hate pity. I would hate for somebody to pity me, but then it just brings up lots of questions about. As a Black woman, you're always taught to be strong, but when you're trying to receive help, you don't actually take it. So I feel like that situation, that scene is a lot to take in.
Yeah, it is. And I think that you touched on something so important there. Like, I think the strong Black woman narrative does kind of trap us sometimes and imprison us from being able to accept help and to be, and allowing ourselves to be vulnerable when people do want to try and find a way to, you know, save us in some ways. Whether they truly can is another thing, but when people just want to help, how we take that in. And Theresa, when you were putting that scene together, when you were writing that scene, what drove wanting Rox to behave that way?
I think it's what Bukky was alluding to, this idea that we have, the whole warrior princess narrative. Like, if you look at some of the images around Black Lives Matter, like, you have Black women at the forefront of some of these marches, and because we are almost groomed to be so sacrificial in our way of love, and not necessarily taught how to receive love. We are very giving, we are very generous by nature and very loving by nature, and learn to protect ourselves and others, and not often protected. I think it's important to show how that starts happening from childhood. There was images of Black Lives Matter where young girls were, and people were like, yeah, she has the spirit of the ancestors, and I'm not judging people's interpretations of that, but that made me sad. It made me sad that 5-year-olds were being lifted up as the face of this fight. We should be fighting to protect them. We should be fighting to preserve the childhood of people like Rox. But from the age of 14, Rox felt like it was her responsibility to protect, to keep her family together. It was her responsibility to preserve her brother's childhood, and she was not allowed, or she did not feel it was acceptable, or she did not feel that she was worthy, or it was her right to receive help, or we have created a society that do not make young women like Rox feel safe to help. And I just think that argument between the two, like, I think, like you said, there is a lot to take from that. It can seem to people like a petty argument between 14 and 13-year-olds, but actually it says so much about how by that age almost we've already done the damage. So we have to look back and think, okay, where was she taught that she would have to do this by herself? Because it's that's too young to think that.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned about the martyrdom, because that is what we find with Black womanhood. It's so inextricably linked to martyrdom and being so overly sacrificial that there's no space for tenderness, there's no space for vulnerability oftentimes. And I think that we are reclaiming that now. We're reclaiming it through narratives such as the one you've created with this film and with Rox. It makes all of the difference. I also think that when it comes to Rox as the character herself, there's that element of trying to protect her mum as well. Because we know how society views Black women and how they view Black women who have mental health, journeys that they're going through. And it's a testament to you to how well that was dealt with. I think that was very gentle how it was dealt with. There was no vilification, which is very, very important. But how was that to write, and then for you, Bukky, to bring forward? Because that is, you know, that is part of the motive, right? That is the part of the driving force, wanting to, I feel, protect, you know, the mum.
Yeah. It was so Claire Wilson and I went back and forth about the mum. We were very intentional about what we included and what we didn't include. There was conversations about you know, about justifying what she was doing or diagnosing, and we were very, very clear very, very early on that we wouldn't diagnose, we wouldn't justify, we wouldn't explain, we wouldn't we wanted to be gentle, we wanted to be careful, we wanted to make sure that we showed her as a loving mum, as a mum who genuinely tried, as a mum who was in a way worthy of the protection that her daughter offered her.
Yes.
And I think that was why it was really important. Samaya's family showed a whole Black family, a functioning, thriving Black family, because we wanted to show that, you know, that this was not a symptom of Blackness or a symptom of poverty, because both families existed in the same community. I think with like, you know, like you said, a lot of Black people, our interaction with services are quite different. So had we see how one of Rox's friends, her white friend Agnes, how her response was, let's just get help, it's going to be fine. Her experiences with services and institutions are one of safety, one of help, one of solution, but how our experience of services and institutions aren't always that. So of course Rox feels the need to protect, of course Rox feels like she has to save her mum from the world that doesn't, you know, a world that doesn't come to help but comes to admonish or to stone or to rebuke. And I think that's what that is the real experience of a lot of Black kids. We learned very, very early on that actually these people that look like they're supposed to help us won't help us.
Yes.
We create communities that protect and that look after ourselves. And it's unfortunate, again, that at 14 years old, Rox would know that the world is not for her.
No, that's true. And how was that for you, Bukky, to bring that forward? Because when you started this process, you were younger than you are now, and having that understanding of, like, you know, this mum just had to go, and she's done it before, but she just had to go. How was that for you to process?
It was difficult because I know my mum would never do that in that situation. Like, I'm used to very hands-on Yoruba women that take on the role of the provider, the helper, the everything. I'm used to that. But then again, shout out to Lara Christina, who played the mum as well.
My baby girl, yeah.
I can defo understand the mother's place, the need to want to just run away from all your responsibility, and how it's funny because she deserves that. Rox doesn't deserve what happened, but the mother does deserve that. So it's just, that's what makes the dynamic so difficult for me to read. Because initially, when Theresa and Claire decided that this was how the story was gonna go, a small part of my head was like, well, you're depicting like Black women in this way where they run away from their problems. All the Black women I've known, all the African women I know, they would never do this. But I think it's important to show, like as Theresa said, the different kinds of Black women, and how, yeah, we all know you're a product of your environment, and not every Yoruba woman is that grounded and hands-on. Like, at the end of the day, before she's Yoruba and before she's Nigerian, she's still a woman, and before she's still a woman. Sorry. So I definitely understood that, and I feel like all the stuff that my mom does, I'm so grateful for my mom. I can see in her eyes how much she would have wanted to do what Rox's mom did, but she. So that makes me look at Roxy's mom's character as, I've never seen her as a villain. Usually, wallahi, if this was another film, I would have saw Roxy's mom and thought, wow, how can you do such a thing? But I've never ever seen it like that. I'm not sure whether it's because I was in it or I feel like that's just the way it's been beautifully written. I know a lot of Yoruba women will see this and be like, "Wow, how can you do that to your child?" But you know that you can identify with the feeling. So it's like, is Roxy's mum her own hero, like disregarding everyone else, or is she like a villain to Rox? I know it's such a big thing to dissect.
It's a massive thing to dissect, but I think that there is no black or white in this situation. I think that this is the beauty of life. What makes it beautiful, what makes it painful, is that none of us are ever angels or villains. Like, we just exist in between. Like, life, we take what life gives us and we make the most of it. And we see in Rox's mum, her making the most of what she has, and she did what she needed to do for herself. I think, like, to just hold on to something, how that, like you said, how that impacts everybody else is what we see play out. But she tried to save herself first, and I guess in some ways we want black women to try to save themselves first before they try to save everybody else. But I've been so grateful that you've been able to speak with me this afternoon. I can't wait for everybody to be able to watch this film, because Lord, we've been waiting. Yeah, so so I can't wait for more people to be able to watch this. And just on a final note, one word from you all, each of you, what love means to you. One word, what love means to you.
Safety.
What did you say, Theresa?
Safety.
Safety. Bukky, one word as it comes to your head.
I was gonna say love. See my head. What does love mean to me? Truth.
Beautiful. Okay, Kosar.
Love. I think it's a hard question, My actually blank. Loyalty.
Beautiful. Safety, truth, loyalty. I'll hold that. That's what love means, and I appreciate you all, and I hope you have just the best time on this journey as you continue with it. Thank you so much for creating something wonderful that we're all going to enjoy. Thank you.
And thank you for your platform. We really appreciate what you do for Black women. Thank you so much. Keep it going.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
It's the Benz Brunani womanist, baby boys, baby girls, you need to hear this. Sit down, receive this realness. Make sure your cup's ready for the tea, we are go sip it, yo. Hard time scrolling for your long shorts. You might learn something you never know. Collect you fine, and she's one of a kind. Don't say you're mine, say you're mine.